Good day everyone, I am Miss Sicilian together with my two other members, Princess Harmony Mangkawan and Dan Anthony Tatoy. We are going to discuss about the Magna Carta for students. In Senate Bill number 530, it is an act providing for Magna Carta for students' rights and welfare. It is the responsibility of the state to nurture and protect the interests of the youth. The state must see to it that the youth rightfully receive quality education in order for them to grow into intelligent, conscientious, civic-minded individuals who will be foundational to the nature's future. Crucially, this education must be delivered through institutions that encourage social awareness and critical thinking in students. The Filipino youth is a thinking youth, and the state must ensure that the educational institutions will encourage that and not suppress it. This bill shall ensure and protect the rights and freedoms of students in campuses all over the country, public and private institutions alike, and it shall embody the democratic values on which this nation is founded upon. The need for a Magna Carta for students is evident. Students who want to involve themselves in demonstrations or organize protests should be given the freedom to do so and not be subjugated by administration policies and regulations. Now, what is Magna Carta for students? A Magna Carta for students will protect the Filipino youth and empower them to become outspoken, socially involved individuals who are attuned to the problems of the nation and devoted to finding solutions for them. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled, Chapter 1, General Provisions. Section 1, this act shall be known as the Magna Carta of Students' Rights and Welfare Act of 2019. Section 2, Declaration of Policy. It is declared to be the policy of the state to promote and protect the rights of students to enable them to participate actively and effectively in the democratic processes of effecting progress and development changes in society. Section 3, Guiding Principles. This act shall be guided by the following basic principles. First, education is a right of every Filipino. The educational system being the principal institutional mechanism for imparting knowledge and developing talents and skills shall be given priority attention and support by the government. Second, it is the responsibility of the state to provide quality and accessible education for all Filipinos at all levels. Third, students' association and organizations are venues for the youth to train them by participating in different activities, promote their intellectual development, and instill a sense of social responsibility as future leaders of our nation. Fourth, the right of students to organize and free speech shall be protected. Students' organizations shall not be subjected to any rules and regulations that hamper or infringe of their basic rights to organize and express their views and opinions. Then, students' publications are the main conduit of the students to freedom of expressing their ideas. The state shall protect and promote campus journalism in every university, facilitate in establishing student publication in schools where there is none, and uphold and protect the freedom of the press at the campus level. Section 4, Definition of terms. So, first is the student. Any student or person enrolled in and regularly attending school in the secondary, graduate, and postgraduate level, including vocational and technical education. Then, school. Any private, public, government-run and funded academic educational institution offering any or all courses in the above-mentioned levels. Then, letter C. School campus. The totality of all contiguous and proximate buildings, grounds, and other facilities designated by the school as areas or facilities for the use of its students. Then, letter D. Governing board. The highest policy-making body of the school composed of the board of directors, trustees, and regents. Letter E. Student council or government. The body representing the whole student population in one school or school campus, whose officers are annually elected at large by the whole student population pursuant to its constitution and by laws if any. Letter F. Council of Leaders. The body composed of the heads of various students' organizations chaired by the president or chairman of the student council or government. Letter G. Student organization. An association or group of students bound by common ideas, principles, visions, and interests, and working towards achieving and realizing their goals and aspirations. Letter H. Student publication. Publications managed and published by students, which are autonomous and independent from other sectors of the school. Any printed issue and or online material such as, but not too limited to, newspapers, wall news, literary folios, newsletters, and other similar forms. Letter I. Tuition. The fee representing direct cost of instruction. Training and other related activities, and the use of school facilities. The term other school fees refers to fees, which overs other necessary costs supportive of instruction, including but not limited to medical, dental, athletic, library, laboratory, and STP fees. Next is Chapter 2, Admission, Non-Discrimination, and Quality Education. In Section 5, Right to Admission and Non-Discrimination. No student shall be denied admission to any school after complying with reasonable and equitable admission requirement. So, no student shall be denied admission on account of his or her physical handicap, socioeconomic status, political or religious belief, sexual orientation, or membership in students' organization. Pregnant students, certified reformed drug users, and those suffering from acquired immune deficiency syndrome or AIDS will not be discriminated against. Next is Section 6, Right to choose field of study. A student shall have the right to freely choose his or her field of study, subject to existing curricula, and to continue his or her course up to graduation except in cases of academic deficiency or violation of disciplinary regulations, which do not infringe upon the exercise of students' rights. Then Section 7, Right to competent instruction and relevant quality education. Every student shall have the right to competent instruction and quality education relevant to his or her chosen field of study and for his or her personal growth. So, to aid this goal, students and education institutions are required to conduct reasonable and equitable evaluation of performance of teachers at the end of the semester or trimester. So, there shall be one student representative in body or committee which screens incoming faculty members. The student representative should be an elected student council official endorsed by the majority members of the councilor or a duly appointed students endorsed by the student council. Then Section 8, Right to adequate welfare services and academic facilities. It shall be the responsibility of the school administration to provide students with adequate welfare services and academic facilities. So, these services and facilities shall include, number 1, adequate laboratory, library, recreation, and physical education facilities. Number 2, free annual physical check-up. Number 3, counseling. Number 4, communication system to ensure prompt notification of letters and relevant information. And number 5, safe and clean student housing such as dormitories. In cases that schools do not have dormitories and housing facilities, the school administration and the student council shall be required to accredit out-of-campus students housing facilities such as boarding house, and lastly, legal assistance in cases involving the exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms stipulated in this Act. In Chapter 3, Right to Organize and Freedom of Association. Section 9, Right to Organize and to Associate. The right of students to form, join, actively participate in any campus organization, association, alliance, or federation for their physical, intellectual, moral, cultural, civic, spiritual, and political interests shall not be curtailed, suppressed, nor abridged. So, such student formations shall be treated as independent from school or any of its departments and as separated and distinct juridical entities. In Section 10, Accreditation of Students' Organization. No student organization or association shall be denied accreditation after fulfilling a reasonable and equitable accreditation requirement unless the same is created for purposes contrary to law in accordance with the 1987 Philippine Constitution. So, there shall be an accreditation board on campus organizations that shall take charge of the accreditation of all students' organization in the school campus. So, it shall be composed of, number 1, 2 representatives from the student organization duly elected by the head of all accredited student organizations in the school. Number 2, represent from the student council or government. Number 3, representative from the student affairs office. And number 4, representative from the school faculty selected their association. In Section 11, right to hold activities. So, students' organizations and associations shall have the right to conduct activities inside and outside campus. So, this means that any student's activity for purposes not contrary to the law shall not be abridged. The school administration shall not discriminate the assignment of school facilities and the granting of other privileges to students' organization. The school administration shall provide, free of charge, a space, hall or building to house the offices of the different student organizations within the school campus. Then, Section 12, prohibited acts of restraints against the right to organize and associate. It means acts that impair the rights of students to organize are prohibited, such as, number 1, signing of waivers or similar documents that use membership to any organization as basis for admission to or impulsion from schools, including the imposition of disciplinary actions. Number 2, imposition of unreasonable requirements on student organizations seeking recognition, such as but not limited to imposition of minimum size of membership and in the imposition of unreasonable community service duties. Number 3, discriminatory policies in the assignment of school facilities and in granting other privileges to student organizations. Number 4, imposing any user fees and other charges for the use of school facilities on the basis that such facilities are already being paid for through tuition and other fees. And lastly, imposition of requirements for admission and continued membership to a student organization that are contrary to the law. So that is against the law. They are prohibited. Then, Section 13, right to establish a student council or government. There shall be one university student council or government for each school, college or university campus that shall be recognized by the schools, colleges, and universities concerned. So, it shall have its own set of officers elected in an annual popular election. Then, this act shall be recognized, although for these schools whose student council is appointed by the school administration, a student council election should be held immediately to choose students' representatives among themselves. In Section 14, the Student Council Constitution. There shall be a constitution or a charter of the student council or government crafted by the heads or representatives of all accredited students' organization ratified by a simple majority of the students who have cast their votes in a ratification that shall lay down the rights, privileges, functions, and responsibilities of the students' council or government. So, it is to protect the right of unaffiliated students. The Students' Council shall devise a mechanism to ensure their representation and participation in crafting of the institution. In Section 15, right to policy making on students' activities. Every student council or government shall have the right to determine its policies. Programs on student activities subject to the student council or government, charter or constitution, and to school rules and regulations, provided that it does not infringe on basic student rights and freedoms of students. Next is Section 16, Student Council Elections. There shall be an independent commission on election or COMELEC of the students that shall oversee and facilitate the honest, orderly, and peaceful conduct of election of officers of the student council or government. So the COMELEC shall be composed only of bona fide students and shall be chosen by the council of leaders from the list of nominees provided by the student organization. The school must provide sufficient funds to the COMELEC to ensure that it is able to function. In Section 17, Student Council Funds. There shall be a fee to be collected from the students to finance the operations of the student council or government in consultation with the student body. So, the school shall facilitate the collection of the student council or government fee during enrollment period and shall turn over the collected amount to the student council or government within 15 days after the last day of enrollment. Then, Section 18, Student Council Faculty Advisor. The appointment of a faculty advisor shall not be a requisite to the establishment and recognition of a student council. So, should a student, through the student council constitution or charter, decide to have a faculty advisor, the student council shall have the right to choose the person to hold such position from among the school faculty whose functions shall be limited to technical assistance. And the approval of the faculty advisor shall not be precondition to the execution of any student council activity. In Section 19, right to join student council alliances and similar formations. No policy restricting the right of students' council or governments to join federations or alliances of student council or government shall be imposed by the school administration. Next is Chapter 4, the right to expression and free speech. In Section 20, right to freedom of expression. Students shall have the right to freely exercise their constitutional rights to peacefully assembly and free speech and expression or petition the school authorities for redress or any grievances. It means no school regulation shall be imposed violating or abridging any of the above-mentioned rights, and no student may be subjected to any disciplinary action solely on the basis of any above-mentioned rights unless it is outside the confines of freedom of expression. In Section 21, right of access to mass media. Students shall have access to print and broadcast media in their respective activities. So, students have the right to print, circulate, and or mount leaflets, newsletters, posters, wall news, petitions, and other such materials. The school authorities shall ensure the provision of such facilities as bulletin boards for the aforementioned materials. And in Section 22, proportionality of offense and sanction. If the exercise of any such constitutional rights is determined to be outside the confines of freedom to expression upon compliance of due process, the concept of proportionality between the offense committed and the sanction imposed shall be followed, provided that the penalty of expulsion, exclusion, or forced transfer, and then the like shall not be imposed for any infraction or improper conduct that may arise by reason of exercise of any such constitutional rights. In Section 23, right to publish a student newspaper and other similar publications. All educational institutions on elementary, secondary, and tertiary levels, public or private, shall be mandated to establish an independent student publication. It means that every school shall have at least one student publication without prejudice to other publications established within the campus. A student publication shall be published by the student body through an editorial board and publication staff composed of students through fair and competitive examinations. In Section 24, revival of closed student publication. All students' publication whose operation ceased upon directives of the school administration shall be revived and allowed to operate again. It means once the publication is established or reopened, the editorial board shall freely determine its editorial policies and manage the publication funds. Next is Section 25, Student Publication Funds. Funding for the student publication shall be sourced primarily from student publication fees collected by the school administration. It shall be mandatory for the school administration to collect the student publication or subscription fees during enrollment period. Then, the school administration shall effect the automatic release of the student subscription fees to the student publication within 15 days after the last day of enrollment. The publication funds shall be deposited through a trust fund or in the account of the student publication in an authorized depository bank. In no instance shall the Commission on Higher Education, Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, and the Department of Education, as the case may be, or the school administration concerned, withhold the release of funds intended for the student publication. Then, Section 26, Student Publication Advisor. The editorial board shall have the discretion whether or not they will appoint a faculty advisor. So, in the case that the student publication decides to appoint a faculty advisor, the editorial board shall have the power to choose its advisor. The approval of the faculty advisor shall not be preconditioned to publication of written material or photographs. Then, Section 27, Interdependence of student journalists and freedom from threat. Members of the student publication shall not be suspended, expelled, or punished with administrative sanctions solely on the basis of the articles he or she has written, except when the article constitutes a violation of the law. So, a student journalist's academic performance as a student shall not be used as basis for his or her dismissal from the student publication. In Section 28, Management of the Student Publication and Funds. The editorial board shall be primarily accountable with regard to the operation of the student publication and management of its funds. So at the end of each semester or term, as the case may be, the editorial board shall prepare a report of disbursement of funds subject to accounting and auditing rules. Such reports shall be posted at the school bulletin board or published in the school publication. And lastly, Section 29, Printing of the Student Publication. The editorial board and the student publication staff, through canvass or public bidding, shall conduct the printing of the student publication. So, for public schools, the student publication shall be exempted from undergoing formal bidding process under Republic Act 9184, also known as the Procurement Act, with regard the selection of the printing press and purchase of equipment and materials necessary for its operation. The editorial board shall freely choose the printing press it wants avail the services of it. Then, now, I am going to pass the other chapters and sections to Miss Harmony Mangkawan. Harmony?
Good day, everyone. I am Princess Harmony B. Mankawan, and I'm going to discuss the chapter 5, 6, and 7 in Magna Carta for the students, which have the number of articles 30 to 36. So let's begin to understand and learn. Chapter 5, Academic Freedom of Students, the freedom of teachers and students to teach, study, and pursue knowledge and research without unreasonable interference or restriction from law, institutional regulations, or public pressure. Section number 30, Academic Freedom. Students' academic freedom shall consist of, but not limited to, the following. Number 1, to conduct research in connection with academic work and to freely discuss and publish their findings and recommendations. Number 2, to conduct inquiry in curricular and extracurricular activities within the campus and the appropriate circumstances. Number 3, to choose a field of study for research and pursue the quest for truth, to express their opinion on any subject or public or general concern which directly or indirectly affects to the students or the educational system. Number 4, to invite off-campus speakers or resource persons to student-sponsored assemblies for a symphonia and other activities of similar nature. Number 5, to express dissenting opinions inside and outside of the classroom. Number 6, to participate in the drafting of a new curriculum and a new review or revision of the old. And lastly, to participate in the drafting and or revising of the student handbook, which shall include the school rules and regulations, a copy of which shall be furnished to the students upon admission to the school, to freely discuss and criticize university policies and national policies. So what is academic freedom example? Academic freedom example involves the freedom to engage in the entire range of activities involved in the production of knowledge, including choosing a research focus, determining what to teach in the classroom, presenting research finding to colleagues, and publishing research findings. So let's proceed to Chapter 6. Chapter 6, Right to Inform. Section 31, Right to be Informed. The right of the students to inform on matters directly or indirectly affecting their welfare shall be reorganized. Access to official records and other pertinent documents and paper pertaining to official acts, transactions, or decisions shall be afforded to the students, subject only by reasonable regulation. Any discussions about students' rights need to include students at the table. Students need to inform policy and contribute to decisions. And when you have the right, you have also the responsibilities of the students, which are attending the classes on time and regularly, being prepared for classes with all necessary supplies, taking good care of school property, completing all homework assignments, organizing their time well, respecting themselves and others, and lastly, reading on a regular basis and doing their best. So let's proceed to Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is all about the right to participate in policy making. Section 32. Participation in the policy making process in school. There shall be student representation in the governing board of the school. The chairman or president of the school councilor or any designated representative chosen by the heads of various local college councils shall be the student representative and shall be the same rights of those of a regular member, provided that his or her privileges shall be limited to a reimbursement for actual expenses incurred in attending meetings. The same rights shall be granted to the secondary level. The students shall also be presented in other policy-making bodies which directly affect their welfare, especially in curriculum drafting, review and revision, student discipline, and academic standards. The student representative shall be appointed or designated by their student council body. Based on my research, Obondo 2000 said that it observes that if students are involved in making decisions about silent issues concerning their lives, they are likely to identify with the outcomes of such process, and the college with institutionalized participation will experience less student-related administrative problems. And then who are involved in school policy making? Policy making includes legislation at any level, grant-making guidelines, problem requirements, problem regulations, and initiatives by school boards, mayors, superintendents, and governors. Section 33. Participation in national policy making. Representatives of national students' organization shall actively participate and possess voting powers in the formulation of national policies by the governmental agencies on matters affecting students' rights and welfare, including tuition. This section will outline one generic example of a process that could be implemented by a government or by an international development. Section 34. Students' Initiative and Referendum. The Student Council or governance through a majority vote of all its members shall have the right to initiate the formulation, modification, or reflection of the school policy affecting the students. The proposition of the formulation, modification, or reflection of a school policy affecting the students shall be submitted to and approved by a majority of the votes cast by all the bona fide students of the school in the referendum called for the purpose. The traditional example is taking leadership of a group situation, being the person who steps up to lead the team and knows how to get the most out of everybody else. This is an example of initiative. But if the idea of being a leader sends you weak at the knees, don't worry, you're not a hopeless case. Section 35. Right to file an appeal. The Students' Council or government through majority vote of all its members shall have the right to file an appeal on a decision of any policy-making body subordinate by the governing board. Such appeals shall be filed with the governing board. The Students' Council or government, with the same requisite number of votes referred to the previous paragraph, may file a motion for reconsideration on any decision of the governing board. In case of any decisions unfavorable to the Students' Council may file an appeal with the Department of Education, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority or TESDA, and the Commission of Higher Education, and so far as the secondary, post-secondary, technical, vocational, or tertiary student service appeals and motion for reconsideration referred in the previous paragraph must filed within 30 calendar days from the date of notice of decision. Students have the right to appeal an academic action. Academic action include faculty probation, required to discontinue or RTD, and must withdraw or MW, appeal of grade. Students have the right to appeal any grade, including a grade in a practicum course. An appeal of grade can be in progress for a specific fees. The Section 36. School fees and other charges. All involuntary contributions shall be prohibited. In releasing documents, academic records, and similar certification, schools are prohibited from imposing fees behind the actual cost of reproducing the documents. It is hereby created a set of guidance school with proposed increases in tuition and other fees must follow. The school shall effective 1. The school shall effectively inform the students, parents, teacher, and non-teaching personnel of the proposed tuition and other fee increase in the place of date of conclusion at least 30 days before the conclusion paper. Number 2. All tuition cancellation shall be made before February 28. Number 3. The school shall make easily available at least 30 days before the cancellation of pertinent documents, including but not limited to financial reports, including a comprehensive report of the incremental proceeds of the preceding year's increase, administrative reports, and the school position paper for the perusal of students, parents, faculty, and non-teaching personnel. Number 4. The school shall allow gatherings and activities of students, parents, faculty, and non-teaching personnel in preparation of the cancellation. Number 5. The school shall furnish the students, faculty, and non-teaching personnel copies of suggested flow and agenda of tuition and other fees cancellation which the concerned party. Number 5. The school shall furnish the students, faculty, and non-teaching personnel copies of suggested flow and agenda of tuition and other fees cancellation which concerned parties may amend to include proposal not limited to review, refund, and recrafting of existing. Number 6. The facilitating body of the conclusion shall be composed of one representative from the school, students, parents, faculty, and non-teaching personnel. Number 7. The consultation shall be open to all concerned students, parents, faculty, and non-teaching personnel. Number 8. The school publication shall be allowed to cover and report the consolation proceeding. Number 9. The school, students, parents, faculty, and non-teaching personnel shall agree on the rate of tuition increase based on the consensus. And lastly, in the event that no consensus is made, the previous rate of tuition and other fees shall apply.
Again, a pleasant day. I am Dan Anthony, and let's proceed to the last three chapters of Magna Carta for students. Chapter 8, 9, and 10. Chapter 8, Due Process and Disciplinary Proceedings, Section 37. Chapter 9, Other Rights, from Section 38 to 42. And Chapter 10, Final Petition, from Section 43 to 47. So, let's begin. Chapter 8, Due Process and Disciplinary Proceedings, Section 37, Right to Due Process. The right to due process of students subjected to disciplinary proceedings shall be observed and respected. A. He shall have the right to defend himself, to be heard, and to present evidence on his behalf before an impartial body. Letter B. There shall be an independent student disciplinary board, or SDB, to be composed of 1. Representative from the school administration, 2. Faculty members, 3. Students to conduct investigation into and decide on cases of students' violations of disciplinary standards. For the purpose of impartiality, members of SDB shall be chosen from the list of nominees submitted by the student council or government from its ranks. The same process will apply for both the school administration and the faculty. C. The blacklisting, expulsion, suspension, and other disciplinary sanction that may be taken against a student shall not be valid unless the following rights have been observed and accorded to the student. Number 1, the right to be informed in writing of the nature and cause of accusation against him or her. Number 2, the right to confront witnesses against him or her and full access to the evidence in the case. Number 3, the right to defend himself or herself and to be defended by a representative or counsel of his or her choice. Adequate time being given for the preparation of his or her defense. Number 4, the right to a hearing before the student disciplinary board. Number 5, the right against self-incrimination. And number 6, the right to appeal adverse decision of the disciplinary board to the governing board and ultimately to the appropriate agency of the government. Letter D, the decision in any disciplinary proceeding must be rendered on the basis of relevant and substantial evidence presented at the hearing, or at least contained in the record and disclosed to the student affected. The deciding body must act on its own independent consideration of the facts of the case. The body shall, in all controversial questions, render its decision in such a manner that the issue involved and the reason for any decision are made clear to the student. Letter G, the office of the guidance counselor or any office dealing with the student discipline of the respective school shall publish on a periodic basis acts which are deemed violated of school rules and regulations and the corresponding disciplinary sanction, provided that such rules and regulations do not violate the rights guaranteed here and under the Constitution. Letter H, in cases where the school administration decide to file any case in court, criminal or civil, against a student, it may do so only after the student disciplinary board or tribunal has determined that the student concerned has committed the same provided. However, should the student be found guilty, therefore, by the student disciplinary board or tribunal, decide to appeal the decision thereof to the governing board of the school, DepEd, CHED, or TESDA. The school administration cannot file the criminal or civil case we cannot file the criminal or civil case based on the doctrine of exhaustion of administrative remedies. Let's move on to Chapter 9, Other Rights. Section 38, Right Against Illegal Searches and Seizures. Any form of unlawful and unreasonable search and seizures shall be illegal. Article 6, in violation of the herein above right, shall be inadmissible in evidence against the student in disciplinary action that may be brought against him or her. Section 39, Right of Entry. Under this, in case of violation, no IBM, no entry, or uniform policies, the student concerned shall not be denied entry, provided that he or she sufficiently provide proof that he or she is a bona fide student of the school. Provided, however, that repetitive violation of campus regulation on no IBM or entry shall be subject to disciplinary actions by the school governing board. Section 40, Access to school records and issuance of official certificates. Under this, subject to the provision of the following section, every student shall have access to his or her own school records, the confidentiality of which the school shall maintain. He or she shall have the right to be issued official certificates, diplomas, transcript of records, grades, transfer credentials, and other similar documents within 30 days from filing of request and accomplishment of all pertinent requirements. Section 41, Unpaid tuition fees and examination. Under this, student with delinquent fees shall have the right to take an examination. No student shall be prohibited from taking a periodic or final examination because of unpaid tuition and other school fees. Nevertheless, such student shall be subject to the right the school concerned to withhold the release or issuance of their school clearance prior to the end of the academic year. Section 42, Guarantee of Demilitarized School Campuses. Under this, except in cases of national or local emergencies, such as war, natural calamities, or if the prevailing situation so requires military detachment, may not be installed or maintained in a campus. Military elements and or policemen in uniform or in plain clothes and school security forces shall not interfere with student activities, particularly peaceful mass action inside the school campus. And last but not the least, Chapter 10, Final Provisions. Section 43, Rules and Regulations. The DEP and TESDA and CHED and the Commission on Human Rights, or CHR, together with the representatives of National Student Organization, National Student Formations, representative of school administration, and the National Youth Commission, or NYC, shall promulgate the necessary rules and regulations to implement the provision of this act within 90 days from its approval. Section 44, Administration and Enforcement. Under this, the Department of Education shall create a multi-sectoral body composed of representatives from this department, the school's administration, and the students' body to monitor the different school campuses to ensure the students' rights are being protected. When there is a finding of schools' willful and repetitious infringement of students' rights, the body shall recommend the proper agency of the Department of Education measures appropriate to the situation including, when necessary, the suspension or cancellation of its license or permit to operate the school, national student organization, student councils, government, or any concerned student and or person shall have the right to report to and demand an investigation from the appropriate education agency into acts committed by school authorities and or administration by virtue of the rights as provided for in these acts. Section 45, Separability Clause. If any provision of this act is declared invalid, the remainder thereof not affected thereby shall continue to be in full force and effect. Section 46, Repealing Clause. All laws, decrees, orders, rules, and regulations or other issuance of parts thereof inconsistent with the provision of this act are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. Lastly, Section 47, effectivity laws. This act shall take effect 15 days following this publication in at least two newspaper of general circulation.